Welcome to the Navy's Red Hill Tank Cleaning webinar. Please share your questions that are relevant to the presentation topic through the Q&A feature. Questions will be reviewed before they are shared at the end of the presentation. Please update your name as you log in and submit your questions. Please be aware that this is a public broadcast, so use appropriate names and language during your questions.
Next slide.
Okay, welcome and thank you so much for joining our webinar on tank cleaning. Goal of the webinar is to give you an update of the progress we've made, as well as just the tank cleaning process in general. So hopefully you get a better understanding of that. So a little bit about me. I'm Captain Steve Stasek. I'm the Facilities Director for Navy Closure Task Force, Civil Engineer Corps Officer with over 20 years in the Navy. Have my undergraduate degree from Cleveland State, master's degree from MIT, both in civil engineering, professional engineer. And I arrived in Hawaii in July of 2022, came to be NAVFAC Pacific Vice Commander, did that for about 5 months, and then got moved over to JTF as a repair and maintenance director. So was with JTF, oversaw all the repairs and modifications, as well as the safety fueling. Now I'm over here with Navy Closure Task Force's Facilities Director. Our main focus items are tank cleaning, pipeline demo, as well as maintenance of the facility. So now I'll turn it over to Commander Barkley to introduce himself.
I'm Commander Richard Barkley. I'm the Facilities Operations Officer. I manage the contractors up on Red Hill. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama, and I hold my PE license in the state of Alabama. As for my military career, I'm a reservist. I've been recalled to active duty for Navy Closure Task Force. And on my civilian job, I work for the Alabama Department of Transportation, and I have over 34 years of construction, materials, and safety with that organization.
Okay, so we'll give about a 15 to 20 minute overview, and then we'll open it up for questions. So again, request that the questions be focused on tank cleaning or other facility stuff, but we can't really answer anything on water quality. Not that we don't want to, just the expertise isn't here in the room right now. So I asked that the questions be just related to what we're discussing with tank cleaning, as well as any facilities. So with that, we'll give an overview of the tank cleaning process. But before we do that, I want to just give an overview of the tanks. So we've got 20 tanks total. Each tank, you can see it on the screen, and you can also see it over here. So each tank is 100 feet diameter by 250 feet high. You can see that the Aloha Tower does fit inside of it. Each tank's capable of holding 12.5 million gallons. Each tank also has a catwalk and a center tower. We'll talk more about the center tower later, as well as the catwalk, so that's why I bring that up. So structurally, it's concrete. It's about 2.5 feet at the top, down to 4 feet at the bottom, and then you got 10 feet of concrete at the bottom. And then you've got the steel shell, which is 1/4-inch steel on the sides and 1/2-inch steel on the bottom. And you'll see that when we show pictures of the tank cleaning, you'll see the steel shell. So on the bottom, we've got so the tanks are a little different. Not all of them have a 12-inch and a 20-inch line, but in general, you have 2 lines that come out of the tank, a 12-inch and a 20-inch line that come out and then connect to the header lines that go all the way down to Pearl Harbor. You also have what's called the 4-line, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. So the other two, the 12-inch and the 20-inch, they don't actually come down to the bottom. They stick up about 7 feet, but the 4-line goes all the way to the bottom. So that's how you drain everything out of the tank, is through the 4-line. So with that, we'll go through the 4-step process, and I'll turn over to Commander Barkley to go through the first step in it.
Okay, the first step in is tank cleaning the tank is to degas the tank. And the goal is to remove all the gases and fuel vapors trapped in the tank to allow personnel to enter the tank safely. So in the lower tunnel down here, you have to disconnect the piping there and to remove the valves in order to install a ventilation equipment. This ventilation equipment will be pumping air into the tank, and at the top of the tank we'll be pulling air out. But before we start doing that, we'll also add water. We'll inject about 1,500 gallons of water to cover the sludge. This will float any residual fuels, anything like that, that'll aid us in degassing the tank. Right before we start degassing, we'll remove the flowable sludge in the fuel mixture, not the solid sludge that's in the bottom, but anything that'll float. And it'll go through that 4-line, the fuel oil recovery system, down and out to tank 311 where it is stored. Okay, as I talked about, there's a 2-fan system, one pushing air into the bottom of the tank and one pulling it out at the top. The system in the upper tunnel, which is up here, has a couple of ways of diluting the air so that we can monitor it and keep it within safe regulations so that it comes out okay for everyone. We monitor the system during all operations when we're starting. We have 2 places where we do this. One is at the vent stack. We have 2 criteria, which we use: 48.2 pounds per hour and 30 parts per million by volume are the limits at the exhaust stack. And this, we'll show you pictures later of the exhaust stack. The other monitoring system we have is the air quality monitoring stations. These are set throughout Red Hill. One of them is about 20 to 30 feet in front of the vent stack, so we get them, we can monitor the highest concentration that's coming out. And I know I'm putting out parts per million and everything, but just to give you an example, if you take hand sanitizer and put it on your hands and get it around one of these sensors, it's going to go above our regulatory limit. Also, if you're sitting on the H1 and you roll down your window and you're in a traffic jam, you're going to get above 10 parts per million, just sitting in that. During this degassing operation, we monitor it and we post every hour the results of what we have. And that can be found on the Navy Closure Task Force website and on the mobile app under air quality monitoring. Now, each of these tanks, it'll vary depending on when the last time these were cleaned. But we're averaging about 2 weeks, about 14 days of degassing per tank.
Okay, so then after we degas, then we go into step 2, which is the sludge removal and the structural repairs. So before we do that, a marine chemist comes in and certifies that the tank is gas-free. And then the first thing the contractor does is installs a small 2-person basket that pretty much moves in between the center tower, and it goes from the top to the bottom. And then they install lights. And then after that, the spider basket is what we call it, is used to go down and remove the sludge from the bottom. And we have some pictures to show how they shovel out the sludge and bring it up in 5-gallon buckets and then transfer it to 55-gallon drums of the catwalk. After that, structural assessments done on the center tower as well as the catwalk. And the reason for the structural assessment is that we have the booms that hang out to do the pressure washing. And the center tower's got to be structurally sound to hold those booms. So after the structural assessment is done and any structural repairs are complete, then we go to step 3, which is the pressure washing. And the pressure washing, we pretty much start at the top and work our way down. It's a 3% Simple Green solution with water. Simple Green's an EPA Safer Choice Program chemical, so it's safe to use. And then basically what we have is we have a closed process. So the 4-line that I talked about earlier, we close the valve on that. So when we're spraying throughout the day, the water collects, the solution collects at the bottom. And then after we get enough solution at the bottom, then we stop and we actually open the valve and drain the solution out. And it pretty much goes from the tank out to a tank and added 3, we call it tank 311. So the reason we do that is so that we can control, we actually have watches throughout the process because the whole 4-line is above ground, so you can see the whole thing. So we have watches just to verify that when we drain it, that there's no leaks or any types of weeps anywhere in the system. Also, what we did was we did what's called CIR, Clean, Inspect, Repair on tank 311 before we started tank cleaning. So that's tank 311 certified for 5 years. And then we also did a leak test on the 4-line all the way from the main sump to tank 311. So we verified that everything was good there. And then the other thing we do is we have gauges to monitor how much water we're putting in, how much solution we're putting in, and then how much is going out 311, just to also verify that the numbers match. So roughly, with the 2 tanks that we've already cleaned, it's about 18,000 gallons per tank. So now I'll turn it over to Commander Barkley to talk about our quality process to make sure that the tanks are clean.
Okay. The quality validation plan has been vetted through DOH and EPA, so it's a combination of all 3 of us making sure that we have high quality during this evolution. So we have the first one is the contractor's QC. They're the quality control check. So this is internal to the contractor. The Navy comes in and does a quality assurance check. And then we have a third party validation check, the QV. We have the standard is the Social Society for Protective Coatings, the SSPC, and it's Surface Preparation Standard 1, SP1, which states the removal of all products, vapor, sludge, and residual from the tank, and washing, rinsing, and drying the tank so that no product or residual remains on any tank surfaces. So this quality validation plan comes with a visual inspection. It's they go in, look at the surface of the tank, and do a cloth rub test. These cloths are bagged and tagged in the location. If you want to go to the next slide, this is a tank rollout sheet. The very top part where you see the odd structure, that's the dome part. Then you got the middle, and then you go back down to the bottom. And so each day when the contractor goes in there, they're pressure washing, and it shows the date that they pressure washed it. It also shows the locations and time that we took any of our tests. The quality validation and also the QA, our Navy personnel can direct any additional testing if they see any abnormalities in the system or in the thing. At the end of this, the third-party quality validated person will do a report, which will be sent to DOH and EPA for approval. And again, all this has been in conjunction with DOH and EPA to create the best solution and the best plan for this system.
Yeah, and just one thing there, so we talked about the SP1 process. So the actual third-party validators, they're actually qualified because it's a certification. They're certified to actually do the inspections and certify that it is to the SP1 standard. And again, they're third-party certifiers that are not under our control. So they're completely independent of us. So one thing, we skipped to the slide, but we don't need to go back because step 4 is just pretty much finalizing, closing out the tank. So it's just putting flanges on the 12-inch, 20-inch line that I talked about before, and just sealing up the tank for whatever the future use is going to be. So now we'll move on to the next slide, and we'll go through the tank cleaning progress that we've made. So basically 7 and 8 are in step 3. Both have completed their pressure washing, and now they're going through quality validation. 7's actually complete with quality validation. 8's going through quality validation. 5 and 6 are going through the step 2 that I talked about. So sludge is removed. Structural assessment was done on 5. Structural repairs are going to be starting on 5. And tank 6, sludge has been removed. And we're just starting some structural repairs on that also. Tanks 3 and 4, we're in step 1 right now, so we're prepping those to start the degassing, and we anticipate starting degassing in early March. So a few things I wanted to point out on here also was I saw some misconceptions online, so I wanted to clear those up. So you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that are colored, but there's also the other tanks that are white. There's 14 tanks total that had fuel in 2021 when the spill occurred. So the other 6 tanks were empty and remained empty the whole time. So let's talk about those tanks. So tanks 1 and 19, they've been empty for decades. They haven't seen fuel for decades, and they were cleaned decades ago. 13, 14, 17, and 18, they were actually undergoing the clean, inspect, repair process that we talked about earlier. And 13, 14, 17 were complete. 18 was almost complete when the 2021 spill happened. So those were pretty much left untouched since the spill. So the reason I bring that up is that those 6 tanks do not need to be degassed. They've already been degassed, and they do not have sludge. So there's no sludge on those. So when we're talking about sludge, we're only talking about sludge on the 14 tanks that had fuel that we defueled as part of JTF. Now of that, 4 already have the sludge removed. So we've got 10 more where we have to remove sludge. And also the other thing on sludge that I want to point out is you see the counter in the corner. So you might have heard that we estimated 2,000 gallons of sludge per tank. And so we've removed the sludge from 4 tanks, and we're only at 158 gallons. That is in fact correct. That's not an error. So basically what happened, the difference is that when the estimate was done, it was done while the tanks were still full of fuel. So there's no way to verify how much sludge was at the bottom. So the team that put together the estimate pretty much just based it on historical numbers that FLC and the fuels people had experienced in the past. But what we're finding is that it's much lower, which is a good thing. So 7 and 8, 5 and 6 are pretty indicative of what we think we're going to see throughout the rest of them. And now that the tanks are empty, we can go in, and if you go on the top, you can actually look down and see on the bottom. So contractor has done that, and all the sludge looks manageable, less than 2,000 gallons in each tank. So we anticipate that estimate that we had is going to be well low of what the 2,000 gallons per tank. So that's a good thing again. And again, we've only got 10 more tanks left to remove the sludge and degas. The other 6 already had the sludge removed, and then we removed the sludge from the 4. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commander Barkley to talk schedule.
Okay, this is the tank cleaning timeline. And as you can see, we kind of color coded it with the 4 steps. Tank 7 and 8 is on plan. Tank 5 and 6 is on plan. And again, tank 3 and 4, we're starting the preparation. So everything is going good to be complete by 2028 on all the tanks. This includes the 4 surge tanks, which we hadn't mentioned before, but those will be cleaned also. And we'll be doing 2 tanks at a time, as you can see in this. And at any one time, we could have 3 sets of tanks open. So each tank will take about 7 to 10 months as a pair to complete the process. So again, the big takeaway from this is that we're on schedule, no major issues.
Okay, so pictures worth 1,000 words. So now we have some pictures to help you better understand.
Okay. Some things I wanted to point out on this. This is the vent stack that sits outside where the gas is removed from the tank. The upper left is showing the connection to the upper tank. This is this part up here where the manway door is. This is where we're pulling out the vapors. And down below is the fan going in to the bottom. That's in the lower tunnel. That's forcing air into the tank to help remove those volatiles.
Okay, so next slide is sludge removal. So as I said, so there's a 2-person basket in the middle that drops down. And then they have to shovel out the sludge. You can see on the picture on the left, the composition of the sludge. So it's pretty thick stuff. So they go down with 5-gallon buckets, shovel it in the 5-gallon buckets, bring them up the basket, and then out the catwalk, and then they pour them into 55-gallon drums, and then those 55-gallon drums are taken off island and disposed of. So next slide. This shows the pressure washing. Those particular pictures are up at the dome area up here. You could kind of see how the spider basket works, as well as the steel plates that we talked about earlier. Next slide. This is just more of the steel plates. You can see they're about halfway down, about right here, doing the pressure washing. Next slide. Okay, now this one really shows you the size of the tank when you see how small they look in comparison to the tank. So again, that's why it takes so long to do the pressure washing and the verification of the tank. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
We don't have any questions yet from online, but here's a clarifying one that we can answer. How active is the DOH and the EPA participating during the inspection process?
We generally meet up with EPA and DOH weekly, if not a couple of times a week. Depends on the activities that are going on. Here lately, with the inspection and the QV part, they've been coming up there at least once or twice a week. So we have regular contact with them. They're very active on site, serving the public. It's a great, they're doing a great job. Do we have any questions online?
Okay, if not, that's okay, but can you tell them how to ask questions later?
After this, if you come up with a question and you need an answer, on the Navy Closure Task Force Red Hill website, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a contact. Contact us. Hit that. It'll come up to a page. You can fill out your information, how you want it replied to, and then put your question in there. Our team here will take that question and put it to the appropriate department. So it doesn't have to be just about tank cleaning. It could be about any subject coming up under Red Hill.
Question from Raphael. Is there going to be a recording of this webinar available?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it'll be on the Navy Closure Task Force website. See if we got another question.
Anonymous question, which teams within the EPA and DOH do you meet with?
So we deal with the Clean Air branch for the actual degassing. And then yes.
In DOH and EPA, they have a designated person, that's their field person, that comes out. Those two are the main two that we deal with and meet with. After that, it's pretty much the whole team after that in both branches.
Yeah, so do we have the field team that they, like I said, they come out at least once a week, usually multiple times. And then they reach back to their organizations for whatever support they need, as well as what we do on our side. So it really is a team effort. They are very interactive and very, very hands-on to the whole process, both EP and DOH.
Another question from a viewer. When will you start degassing the next tanks?
So we plan to start degassing tanks 3 and 4 in early March.
Anonymous question. When degassing, are those blue fans on 24/7 venting the tanks?
That's no, they're not. We only degas during the contractor's working hours. We don't want to have it unmonitored at any time, so we stop the fans at the end of the day and then we'll restart them the next day.
And one thing, I mean, we didn't really talk about it in a lot of detail, but so actually right outside where you saw that big vent, we actually have the job site trailer for the contractor. And when we're degassing, I mean, it's like a command center. We have multiple computers, we're watching, and we've got sensors throughout from in the tank all the way out to the main vent that you see. So we're monitoring the CFMs as well as the VOCs coming out or the fumes coming out. So we can easily adjust. So it's really just, it's an easy adjustment with CFMs. So we usually start out with lower CFMs because you have higher VOCs that are built up in the tank. And then once we start getting those fumes out, then we could crank up the CFMs to push out the fumes. So it's a very interactive, hands-on process. And the other thing I would point out is that we're actually right below the vent when it's blowing out the air. So if anybody's going to get poisoned, it's going to be us first. So we watch very closely, and we don't even come close to the standards that we agreed to at DOH. We stay well below because we can. It's just balancing the VOCs with the CFMs that we're pushing out. And then we also have the 9 monitors that are set up around the perimeter. And really, the only monitor that we've set off with the first 4 was the one right below where the vent is. And that, I think we have like one.
One's the highest we've run.
One was the
Everything
highest.
has been way below that.
Yeah, and 20 is where it starts. That's where you would get your attention. So we weren't even close to that.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows how meticulous we are with it. And again, the other thing too is even if we see it going high, it's an easy thing, just cut off the fan and stop. So we've got lots of control over doing it where we're not going to pollute the environment.
Yeah. And we also have 2 ways of putting clean air into the system to dilute it even further. So with all those controls, like Captain Stasic said, it's easy to adjust the system to where we don't come close to the regulatory limits.
Kylo asks, where does the power wash water go after the cleaning is completed?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't think I think I forgot to say that. So basically what happens is, every day we drain and it goes to tank 311. And then when tank 311 gets about 3/4 of the way full, we test it. And based on the testing, which we know what it's going to be, then we send it off to a contractor site here on island that DOH certified, and they certified it specifically for this evolution for tank cleaning. So it goes to that site. And over there, they have oil water separators, and they have other equipment to do what they need to do to it to make it clean to dispose of.
Another anonymous question. You probably addressed this, but where are you moving the removed sludge?
So actually, that's a good question too, because I forgot to cover that too. So I'll let Commander Barkley cover.
The sludge is taken into barrels. We test it, categorize it, and then ship it off island to the States to a certified disposal area.
And the disposal areas in Utah.
Anonymous question, just curious which parts of the process are conducted by contractors versus Navy personnel, if you're able to answer in more detail.
So pretty much the whole process is handled by contractors, but we do have Navy personnel oversight throughout the whole process. So like, for example, during degassing, it's the contractor, it's their equipment that's doing it, but he and I and others are actually standing in there in the control center watching it, and giving direction too. But the contractors own that. And then for phase two, when we're talking about sludge removal and the structural repairs, again, that's done by contractor, but we're watching that also. And then for the sludge removal, our N45 branch, they get all the reports from the contractor of when it's pretty much the shipping from when it leaves our facility till it gets loaded on a ship, till it gets offloaded in Utah. The contractor reports all that to our N45 shops, so we have the full visibility on that. And then when we get to tank cleaning, again, as contractors run the tank cleaning, but we talked about the quality control process, quality assurance process, and quality validation process. So quality control is what the contractor does. The contractor will spray the walls, and then they'll be the first step to look at it and say if it's clean or not. And then after that is when our government personnel come in and do what's called the quality assurance. And then our government personnel will go out on the baskets and verify that it's good. And then when they say it's good, then the third process is the quality validators, which is a separate contractor that comes out and they do the final validation on it. So it's really the Navy personnel. And when I say Navy personnel, that means uniformed as well as civilians. We don't own any of the process, but we oversee all parts of the process.
And at each step of this process, we have DOH and EPA going through every step with us. Do we have any more questions online?
Those are good ones. For y'all some more.
Question is, who makes sure the contractors are properly equipped and operating safely?
That's part of our duties as the oversight. We have construction managers, we have technicians that constantly monitor everything. Captain Stacy and I and other parts of our teams are constantly going out there, reviewing everything and making sure it's all good before we go to the next step.
Yeah, so obviously, when we're talking about this process, you can see there's a lot of major safety concerns on it. So a few things we do is before the contractor does any of these evolutions, we actually go through a very detailed brief of how they're going to do it, and safety is covered there. And then also, fall protection is a huge thing. So we have fall protection throughout, so and the fall protection again is cables that are secured throughout. So anytime you step foot anywhere from the catwalk to anywhere else, you're tied off. So the furthest you can fall is 6 feet with the tie-offs. So we always have that in place, and all that's verified before any worker can go out there. And then also we're always monitoring to make sure there's enough oxygen in the tank for the workers, and making sure that the workers have all their safety gear on. So contractors responsible for that, following all the OSHA requirements, and there's government oversight on the contractor, as well as Navy Closure Task Force has safety personnel that also go out and monitor the contractor.
And daily, the contractor, every morning they go in and they check all the safety guidelines, ropes, baskets, everything. So they are heavily involved in the safety side.
Any more questions?
Well, if you if you have questions and you think about it, or if you show the video to anyone and they have questions, please go to our website, Navy Closure Task Force Red Hill. Upper right-hand corner is the contact information. Contact us, hit that link and send us your questions. We'll be happy to answer what we can.
Hey, thank you again, and I hope you found this helpful.